A woman emailed me last month after her husband passed away, and she was suddenly the one shopping for a car for the first time in almost 30 years. She said something that stuck with me. She walked onto a lot, sat in an SUV everyone told her was the obvious choice, and felt like she needed a stepladder just to get in and a gym session just to see over the hood. She almost gave up and bought the same tired sedan she'd had since the 90s, purely out of frustration. Then a salesperson, almost as an afterthought, pointed her towards something sitting quietly in the back corner of the lot. Lower step-in height, seat practically at hip level, visibility so good she said it felt like sitting in her own living room. She drove it home that same day. Nobody had told her that car even existed. That's basically the whole premise of this video. There are hybrid SUVs out there right now that hardly anyone talks about, sitting in the shadow of the same 2 or 3 names everyone already knows. And for drivers over 50, some of them are genuinely better fits than the best sellers getting all the attention. So today we're counting down 4 of them, and I want to be upfront, this isn't about which SUV has the most horsepower or the flashiest infotainment screen. This is about comfort, visibility, ease of entry, and the kind of quiet confidence that makes you actually want to get behind the wheel instead of dreading it. If you're shopping for yourself, or if you're the one helping a parent find their next car, stick around, because a couple of these might surprise you. Before we get into it, quick favor. If this kind of practical, no-nonsense car advice is useful to you, hit subscribe, because we cover exactly this kind of thing every single week, no sponsor telling us what to say. Let's start with number 4, the Hyundai Santa Fe Hybrid. Most people who think about the Santa Fe picture a family hauler, something built for soccer practice and road trips with kids in the back. What almost nobody mentions is how well that same design translates for an older driver. The seating position is upright without being awkward. The dashboard uses large, clearly labeled buttons instead of burying every function 3 menus deep in a touchscreen. And the rear doors open wide enough that getting in and out doesn't require any twisting or ducking. That last part matters more than people realize. A lot of hip and knee discomfort that shows up later in life makes twisting motions genuinely painful, and a wide door opening paired with the right seat height removes that problem almost entirely. The hybrid powertrain adds something else worth mentioning. It's remarkably smooth and quiet at low speed, which matters a lot if road noise has started to feel more tiring than it used to, something that happens gradually as hearing changes with age. You're not fighting engine drone at every stoplight. The ride settles, the cabin stays hushed, and the whole experience feels less like operating machinery and more like sitting in a well-insulated room that happens to move. There's also a practical safety layer worth mentioning here that doesn't get enough credit. Adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assistance, standard on most Santa Fe hybrid trims, aren't flashy features, but they quietly reduce the mental workload of driving, especially on longer highway stretches. Reaction time naturally slows a bit as we age, and a system that gently nudges you back into your lane or maintains a safe following distance without you having to micromanage it isn't a crutch. It's an extra set of eyes working alongside your own. Number 3, the Mazda CX-50 Hybrid. Mazda doesn't get talked about nearly as much as Toyota or Honda in this conversation, and that's honestly part of why it belongs on this list. The CX-50 was built with a driver-focused philosophy from the ground up, and one thing that consistently shows up in reviews is genuinely supportive seating, the kind that holds you properly on longer drives instead of leaving you shifting around after 40 minutes. For someone whose back isn't quite what it was 20 years ago, that difference is not small. Visibility is another strong point here. The greenhouse, that's the glass area around the cabin, is generously sized, and the mirrors are shaped to minimize blind spots rather than just meeting the bare minimum requirement. Combine that with a ride that's been consistently described as smooth without being floaty or vague, and you get a vehicle that feels planted and predictable, which builds confidence fast if you felt uneasy behind the wheel lately. It's not the cheapest option on this list, and it's not marketed specifically at older drivers, which is exactly why so few people even think to cross-shop it. That's a shame because on paper and in practice, it checks nearly every box that actually matters for this specific kind of buyer. Number 2, the Kia Sportage Hybrid. Here's where the story gets interesting, because the Sportage is a textbook example of a car that quietly earned real trust while nobody was paying attention. It shows up consistently on lists ranking the easiest SUVs for older drivers to get in and out of, right alongside the RAV4 and the CR-V, the 2 names everyone already knows, but the Sportage rarely gets mentioned in casual conversation the way those 2 do. What sets it apart is the combination of a genuinely low step-in height with a seat that sits at close to the ideal hip-level position experts recommend for aging joints, meaning you're essentially sliding into the seat rather than climbing up or dropping down into it. Add Kia's transferable warranty, which we've talked about before on this channel, and you get real financial protection on top of physical comfort, something that matters if you're on a fixed income and want predictability rather than surprises. The interior layout leans toward large, easy-to-read displays and buttons you can actually feel and identify without looking down, which sounds like a small thing until you're driving at dusk and don't want to take your eyes off the road just to adjust the temperature. Fuel economy on the hybrid variant is genuinely strong too, which matters less for the wallet at this point in the conversation and more for the practical rhythm of daily life. Fewer gas station stops means fewer moments spent bending down to work a pump handle, fewer trips across a busy parking lot in bad weather, and honestly, one less errand competing for time and energy during the week. It's a small quality of life upgrade that never shows up on a spec sheet, but shows up constantly in real life. And now, number 1, the Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid. This is the one that genuinely surprises people because everyone already knows the RAV4 Hybrid, and the Corolla Cross lives almost entirely in its shadow, even though it's built by the same company with the same reputation for reliability. It's smaller, which some people assume means less comfortable, but for a lot of older drivers, smaller actually solves problems the RAV4 doesn't. It's easier to park, easier to maneuver in tight grocery store lots, and the step-in height and ground clearance are tuned specifically to make entry and exit simple without sacrificing the elevated seating position that makes visibility so much better than a sedan. The price point is where this one really earns its spot at number 1 for this particular list. The hybrid version starts meaningfully lower than most of its competitors in this comfort-focused category, which matters enormously for anyone on a retirement budget who still wants genuine Toyota hybrid reliability without paying RAV4 level prices. And reliability isn't a small consideration here. The last thing anyone wants in their 70s is to be stranded in a parking lot waiting on a tow truck, and Toyota's hybrid system has a well-earned reputation, one we've talked about at length on this channel, for going the distance with minimal drama. You're getting the same dependable hybrid engineering under a smaller, easier-to-live-with body, at a price that leaves room in the budget for the things retirement is actually supposed to be about. There's a detail that rarely comes up in reviews but genuinely matters here. The trunk opening sits at a lower, more accessible height than most compact SUVs, which makes loading and unloading groceries or luggage noticeably easier if bending and lifting have become more of a chore than they used to be. It's a small thing on a spec sheet, but it's exactly the kind of small thing that determines whether a vehicle feels effortless or exhausting to live with day after day. So here's the pattern across all 4 of these, and it's worth saying plainly. None of them are the vehicle a 25-year-old enthusiast is going to get excited about on a forum. None of them have 300 horsepower or a giant vertical touchscreen dominating the dashboard. What they have instead is thoughtful seat height, wide door openings, genuinely good outward visibility, controls you can operate without a manual, and hybrid powertrains that deliver a smooth, quiet ride without the complexity headaches we've talked about on this channel with some plug-in hybrid systems. These are not consolation prizes. They're specifically well-suited to what actually matters once your priorities shift from performance to comfort and confidence behind the wheel. If you're helping a parent shop, or if you're doing this shopping for yourself, here's the one piece of practical advice I'd give before you set foot on a lot. Don't just sit in the driver's seat for 30 seconds in the showroom. Actually get in and out of the vehicle several times the way you would multiple times a day in real life. Reach for the seatbelt. Adjust the mirrors. Turn the climate control without looking down at it. Half the vehicles that look great on a spec sheet reveal their real personality only after you've actually lived in the driver's seat for a few minutes, not just glanced at it. And one more thing worth checking, especially if grandkids or great-grandkids are part of the picture. Ask specifically about latch anchor points and how easy the rear doors are to manage one-handed while also holding a car seat, a bag of groceries, or someone else's hand. It's a detail salespeople rarely bring up unprompted, and it makes a real difference in daily life, not just on paper. None of these 4 SUVs are secret in the sense that nobody's ever heard of them. But compared to the 2 or 3 names that dominate every best car for seniors conversation, they're genuinely underrated for exactly the buyer this list is built for. If you're over 50, or you're shopping for someone who is, don't let the loudest name in the room make the decision for you. Sit in all 4 if you can. Your hips, your back, and honestly your peace of mind will thank you. Which one of these would you actually consider? Or is there another hybrid SUV you think deserves a spot on this list? Drop a comment and tell me, because a lot of the best recommendations on this channel have come straight from people reading this right now. And if this helped, hit subscribe, because we break down exactly this kind of practical car advice every single week.